Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome once again to our bi-monthly video conference. I am Louix Dempriey, for those of you who have not seen or met me before, and I thank you all, one and all, new people and returning people, for joining us and joining me. And today is the 20th of February, 2014, and we're broadcasting in Laguna Hills, California. Thank you for your patience. I haven't been live for a little bit. I've been caught up in some very big administrative things and restructuring here, so I thank you for your patience, and I hope you have enjoyed the pre-recorded materials we've been providing from our archives. A lot of that has never been seen or heard publicly before, so it's a rather special treat, I think, anyway. So I'd like to start today with, we'll do a little bit of toning. It's to bring in some nice vibration. If you want to follow along silently and let the vibration go through you, you can, or wherever you are at home or in front of your TVs or computers, if you want to join in, you're welcome to as well. Excuse me. It always helps to have the back straight as possible, whether you're standing, sitting, or lying, so that your chakras are aligned and the chi, the prana, can flow through you as smoothly as possible. All right, let's take a few deep, slow, deep breaths into the lower abdomen, with your neck, jaws, shoulders, chest relaxed. And as we do this, just let your day fall away. Breathe in fresh life force energy, pure prana, and see, feel, and know that it's rinsing you clean, attaching to all particles that are less than the highest and purest love and light. And with the exhalation, it attaches to them and sweeps them out with the exhalation, rinsing them into the earth, where dear Gaia receives it as food and nourishment, transmutes it into love, and spreads it far and wide to all her flora and fauna. In the great symbiotic cycle of life, our refuse becomes food for the earth. The same way our exhaled carbon dioxide is the breath that sustains all the plants in the world. A perfect win-win combination. The same is true for our prana and all our dross that we rinse from our bodies. Think of it as fertilizer for the earth. As we know from the animal kingdom, we use their refuse that they pass out as fertilizer for our plants. The same is true in consciousness, in mental and emotional bodies. That refuse, that fecal waste of the mind and emotional body, is fertilizer for the earth. So draw in the fresh prana and exhale out all that is old and no longer needed or usable. All that is not of the highest love and light. And hopefully already you'll be feeling a little bit of scintillating vibrancy and effervescence in your aura, in your body. Crispness and clarity coming in with this deep breath. And allow the sound of my voice and the vibration it carries to enhance and embellish what we've just already begun. I always recommend after toning or chanting, any type of repetitious sound creation like that, that people stay in the silence for a little while and inhale directly from that collective vibration of sound that has been created, because while you're toning and chanting, you're building that vibration that originated as light, and then, originated as a thought in the mind of God, and then entered creation first through sound, which is the highest form of outer creation. And so by chanting and toning, you're creating this enormous vibration of of divine energy. And when you finish it, that's a living thing, a real created thing that's sitting there, and it's powerful to draw from it. That space after the toning is equally, if not more powerful than while you're toning. So inhale from that vibration. Picture it however it is you do, in your body, in front of you, before you, and draw your inhalation from that silent vibration of sound that's been created, summoned from the ethers and pulled into the world of matter as sound. And you'll see a huge difference than when people normally finish chanting or toning and then just start gabbing and yapping and running about. All right. I know a lot of you have heard that before, but I wanted to share that again. Many people don't know that. All righty. I've got some questions that have been submitted, and I thank you for them, beloveds. Please keep sending them in. They help many, many people, many more besides the one who's asking. Excuse me. Our first question this evening comes from Canoga Falls, Wisconsin. No. Our first question this evening: can you please speak about the concept of euthanasia, which is commonly known as mercy killing? Is this something that you support? I have mixed feelings about it myself. When my cat was very ill and it became clear she would not recover, I had her put to sleep, as I just did not want her to suffer anymore. It was very difficult for me to let her go, although I believed it was best for her. However, I don't know that I agree with euthanasia for people. I don't believe in forcing people to take medical treatment that will prolong their life, yet not provide quality of life. I know some people with degenerative disease believe that they should be able to take their own life or be assisted to do so while they are still physically and mentally capable to make this choice. And yet other people do not want to live with disabilities. Do humans have the right to take their own life in certain situations? Well, you've got a lot of subjects in here and a lot of variations. You even have one seeming contradiction in here. You say, I do not agree with euthanasia for people, but I don't believe in and then you say, I don't believe in forcing people to take medical treatment to prolong their life. That's a direct contradiction. So unless you're expressing that you feel stuck between a rock and a hard spot with a lose-lose situation. I'm not sure which one you're saying, but let me address all your points. Okay, you also mixed animals and people together. Some people feel those categories are the same, others feel they're different. So let me talk about both. Now, there's one thing that's pervasive in your whole little discourse here, and that is that from where I'm sitting, I see no God in the equation here at all. It's just I feel, I think, I thought. So I don't see any sign of an inner listening, an inner asking, communing with the divine about what's being asked here, whether it's animal or person, communing with the soul of the animal or person. It's just, I didn't want her to suffer. I don't like this. I don't like that. So that is pretty much the opposite of everything I teach. The foundation of my teachings is that you make every act in your life an act of supplication. By supplication, I mean you defer to the divine. You ask in your heart, or, I'll put quotes around asking, because the asking process, the supplicating process varies from person. Some people use physical tools like tarot cards, I Ching, plumb bobs, pendulums. Some people meditate and hear very clearly. Some people ask for signs. Some people have dialogues with their guru or with different ascended masters, saints, angels. So whatever your asking is, that's what I propose people do and suggest people do in every situation. Make everything an act of deference, an act of supplication to the divine, so that you're divinely guided and sourced in all the ways of your life. And that not only puts you in greater attunement with divine will, which brings ease, grace, and flow into your life in all areas, but it also helps alleviate and eliminate the thoughts and feelings that come up in people about attachment, guilt, obligation, fear. That gets mitigated, that gets reduced when you get in the habit of being in this divine communion, this conversation with God, however you call God, with the divine, of inner attunement to divine will. Otherwise, it's easy to see how quickly this sense of obligation and fear can develop. Oh my God, and what if it's my fault? And what if I'm wrong? And the sense of responsibility for choices you make and for things that happen around you and to other people. So I highly recommend with anything, not just euthanasia, but with everything, develop that divine communion. That's what frees you. That's what empowers you. That's what sources and guides you. And that's the tool we came in with. That's our most powerful tool we have. And this whole thing about I can't hear, everybody can hear. It's just, some people have it more developed than others. Some people are afraid to listen or practice or develop these abilities, but everyone has them. Nobody is born or created disconnected from the divine. It doesn't exist, that phenomenon. It is true that some people's abilities might be dormant, might be undeveloped, might be, various stages of development, but nobody is born or created without a connection, inherent connection to the divine. And that's what spiritual training is about. Books and classes and mentors and teachers and guides learning about these concepts and then learning tools and techniques to develop them so that you become a walking, talking, thinking, feeling communion with the divine. It's just an amazing and very freeing way to live. So, and that I did not see or hear in your discussion here. So that's an important thing, the most important thing to apply. Now, in terms of, I'll go to your last question. Do humans have the right to take their own life in certain situations? That's a mouthful. That's not for me to say. I'm not the authority on human beings and people's choices. Humans can do whatever they want to do whenever they want. I mean, it's almost a rhetorical question. I know that's not really what you want to know. You want to know is it right or wrong, which is also something I don't speak on. I never speak in terms of right and wrong. You're also asking, is it something I support? Let me use a story history as an example of what I want to share and teach on this subject. I've always had mixed feelings about it in the past. And part of those mixed feelings came from ignorance, my own ignorance, of the higher order of creation and of ignorance of knowing truly how much power every human being has. Ignorance of knowing how fully connected and aware our souls are in every condition of and during being embodied. And this is a great misnomer, a great fallacy that many people do not understand. So if I shed some light on this subject, I think that it will help people come to their own conclusions rather than me telling you what's right and wrong, which is not my place, nor my opinion. So long as you are embodied, regardless of whether you're brain dead, in a coma, whatever the conditions are, unconscious, your soul's consciousness is fully thriving and functioning at 100% of its capacity in your embodiment, regardless of what your body looks like. This is also true for developing fetuses. The consciousness from the moment of conception to the moment of the last breath is, and even before and after, but let's say empirically, what we're defining as embodiment, moment of conception to the last moment of the last breath. The consciousness is 100% functioning on all levels, your soul consciousness in your embodiment. So that includes a fetus from the first minute of conception. By that I'm saying they perceive, receive, perceive, know, understand, integrate every single thing that's happening in their entire realm, spoken and unspoken, thoughts, your feelings, your words, everything that's going around in the environment is all being imprinted on the fetus. Because they're behind a wall of flesh or several walls of flesh and cannot see with human eyes, completely irrelevant. Consciousness is omnipresent, every soul's consciousness. So everything that is happening is being perceived and impregnated upon that developing consciousness. Same is true at the other end of the spectrum. You're talking about people with degenerative diseases, people in comas. They perceive everything. Now, to some degree, this has been documented. There are many, myself included, there are many people who do regression therapy, whether it's rebirthing or past life regression, and take people back. Let's just say rebirthings, when people have spontaneous recollection of things that were spoken while in utero. People will recall arguments their parents had, a statement that was made, a comment that was made, that impregnated that consciousness, and then subsequently, albeit unwittingly, affected that individual's life for years, if not decades to come. Something as innocuous as saying, "Oh, I wanted a boy," when the mother had a girl in her womb, and that impregnates on that child for life. I'm not wanted, I'm not loved, I'm not lovable, low self-worth, low self-esteem, and then corresponding behavioral patterns that will play out as a result of that stamp being put on by one or both parents, which again, the child doesn't perceive only as parents, but as the direct word of God, because the developing child perceives and experiences the parents as not only as surrogates for Mother, Father, God, but as Mother, Father, God itself. That's how children develop in their consciousness. And that shows you the power of whatever comes from a parent toward a child is exponentially more impactful than what comes to a child from any other being on the planet. The most powerful influence. So I know this is probably not directly on the subject of euthanasia, but it is in a matter of speaking. So the point I was making is how the consciousness, while you're embodied, perceives everything. So, and about how much power every human being has. The assumption is, and you say it in the paragraph, while someone is capable of making that choice. So let me delineate euthanasia in terms of asking the individual what they want, and you move on to the legality of it, not legality, but the integrity or morality of it. But let's just say in terms of the question. You have an individual who, some individuals speak and write in their will and in their last statements that if something should happen to them and they're not able to make a choice, they do not want life support. Some places that gets honored, some places it doesn't. So there's the argument or the discussion of while the person is able to make the choice, and then there's the discussion of what about when the individual is not able to make the choice and had not made it when he or she was able. That's the part I'm addressing now. Contrary to what most people believe or know or think, the person is always capable because the soul's consciousness is fully capable and fully functioning even while in a coma, even while unconscious. To wit, I will give an example. I had as an individual with whom I was very close over the years. She, in her late 70s, had a massive cardiac thrombosis type thing. I don't remember the medical proclamation of it. But basically, she went brain dead, 95% brain dead, instantly. And she was lying there, eyes closed, not functioning, and but breathing. And the doctors, she was in her late 70s, as I said, and her vital statistics were like the Rock of Gibraltar. And the medical team said that she could easily live into her 90s. She had not a single medical problem in her entire body on any level of her being. And they said she's an iron constitution in perfect health. She's just brain dead. And she had never made that decision about herself. And her children, like many children, just want to keep her alive. They don't want to see their mom go. And I was very close to this woman, so I went to visit her in the hospital. And I knew right away. I knew right away she was trying to leave, and it got impeded for whatever reasons. I don't want to lay blame or fault, but she was definitely trying to leave. She had this massive cardiac thrombosis on the day she retired at 70, on her 75th. I don't know if it was on her birthday, but she was 75. She was forced to retire against her will, and by this company she'd been with for decades. And she was still driving a car, taking karate, spoke several languages, had raised over 10 foster children after she raised her own 3 kids for 20-something years. She went on to raise boat refugees from Asia for another 20 years, raised 10 more kids. She was just a dynamo. And it was very clear that she was ready to go. But life support was keeping her alive. So I went to visit her, and again, I was communing with her silently, and she just wanted to go. So when I got to the hospital, they had shackles on her wrist, big leather shackles, and the woman was 4'10", and she weighed about 80 pounds soaking wet. I mean, this woman couldn't harm a mouse, and it really bothered me to see this little petite woman shackled, like some animal, and I said, why do you have this innocent woman shackled? She's already brain dead. And they said, even brain dead, without moving, without speaking or eating or functioning. She had tubes. She was all hooked up like a pool filter. They said she kept ripping her cords out, ripping her life support out. And I turned to the medical team and I said, and why do you suppose that is? She's trying to tell you something. You wouldn't let her go when she had her cardiac thrombosis there. And she kept ripping her cords out. But other than ripping the cords out, she was motionless. No sound, nothing. So they shackled her so she couldn't pull her cords out. So now she can't even physically get herself out of her embodiment. And I got really angry. I got really frustrated. And I went to the feet of my masters at the time and said, what do I do? And that's when they shared the teaching with me that I'm now sharing with you. They said, she might be classified as brain dead, but she's every bit there. You can talk to her. She doesn't need to open her eyes or talk back. She can hear you. She can hear every word. So I said, So I started going in to visit her, and I told her, I said, you can go. It's okay. I told her all kinds of things. I said, your children are scared and they want to keep you here. It's very clear to me you want to leave. You tried to you first had that, attack, and now you're trying to pull your cords out. It's clear you want to go, and I can hear you saying that. And I can't do it for you because I'll go to jail for murder, but you can leave. So I knew what I had to do was alleviate her fears. In her particular case, and this is the case for many people, what was holding her, there are two primary things holding people in their embodiments. Their fears and guilt over leaving the ones behind who don't want to let them go. They don't want to let me go. They're holding me here. They're afraid. They blah, 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 blah. Or their own fears about crossing over, which many people have. Well, the second greatest human fear is the fear of mortality. I've spoken before. You're wondering what's the largest fear then? It's the fear of intimacy. Fear of intimacy in humans far surpasses the fear of death, fear of mortality. That fear of what's beyond, and what if there is no immortality, and what if there's nothing, and fear of intimacy is even greater. Look at the state of human relationships and the divorce rate. Anyway, getting back to our story already in progress, I knew that the pull from her kids who didn't want to let her go was weighing heavily on her. I knew she had no fear of crossing because her son had passed over recently, and she told me when she was still healthy that she had a lot of communion with him. Her husband had passed away 20 years ago, and she had constant visits from him. She was a devout Christian and prayed all the time. She had so many mystical experiences of the divine. She had zero fear of leaving. It was the pull of her, in her case, of her children not wanting her to go and her feeling bad, and she was stuck. So what I did with her was I just went in and would talk to her. I'd caress her and hold her hand and put kisses on her cheek and just tell her that they'll be okay, they understand, they're just afraid. I know you want to go and you need to go, and it's okay, they'll be fine. I'll talk to them and they'll find their way, don't worry about it. And at one point on one of my visits, she actually opened her eyes, wide open, eyes welled up with tears. She squeezed my hand and almost crushed the bones in my hand and spoke my name and said, I love you, Louix, and thank you. And then she closed her eyes and went back to being brain dead. This woman had not opened her eyes once since her attack, not once. The only time she even moved was to pull her cords out. And she opened her eyes, cried, spoke my name, said I love you, and then I did a ceremony with her, called in her late husband, called in her son, who was quite an angel himself, and helped create a corridor. And I got a call 2 days later that she had passed. They were preparing to move her to a facility where they were going to hook her up to a life support machine. And the doctor said she'll go at least 20 more years. But the day before they were going to move her from the hospital, she passed. So, things are not what they seem. You say, how do I feel about it and what do I do? I'll just tell you my beliefs and what I do in my practices. And I've already shared those. It's not my place to say what's right or wrong or what you should do. People all have to do for themselves. In terms of animals, I myself have performed euthanasia on animals before, but it's not a decision that I make. It's a decision that they make. I commune with the animal, and the animal gives very clear signs, just like people do. This is why I keep saying it's so important not to underestimate, or to never underestimate, the necessity for this divine communion and conversation. Everything in creation is speaking and communing to us all the time. It may sound crazy to say it, but even objects, everything is consciousness. Even inanimate objects, if it exists, it has consciousness. It doesn't have to be breathing to have consciousness, because it came into creation. It was directed into creation by the Creator and by forces in creation. In harmonic convergence, supply and demand spun everything into form, whether it's an event, a person, an object. Ergo, everything that exists vibrates. We know that from simple physics. It's made of molecules, the molecules move. Therefore, it's alive. So everything has consciousness, and that consciousness can be communed with at any time. It's just important to take advantage of that and know that and practice it. And yes, it may be difficult for some people in the beginning, but like anything, you get better with practice, and you develop these skills that, like I said, have lain dormant within the human substrata of consciousness and form. But they're there. So with animals, I commune with the animals, and the animals will convey what they want. And I've seen some amazing, amazing ceremonies happen. But I don't believe, nor do I feel, in any case, was it my choice, or would I make the choice? I would not impose that choice on any other living being. I don't feel it's my choice to make. But I can certainly assist, and I can certainly listen, and certainly offer whatever abilities I have to help others find and make those decisions for themselves. So I hope that lent some clarity and gave some structure and foundation to order of creation, to the abilities humans have, to the subject and the topic itself, and to what you can do in different situations. I believe the most important two aspects of this whole discourse are, one, about the fact that everything is consciousness, and the need to commune with everything, and that there's a great misunderstanding about people's ability themselves. They can, when they are spoken to clearly and empowered to do so, they can. And you can do this. You'll see for yourself in life as life progresses. You can help people do this. I've done this I teach and practice natural childbirth too, and I've had cases. I have had 2 cases where just by communing with the baby, a breech baby just turned around without medical intervention. And I had another case where a birth I was guiding, the baby would not descend into the birth canal, and it went for hours and hours. And the mother was becoming in pain, and then they were almost going to have medical intervention. And I just had to sit there and talk to the mother and to the baby, and we had to bring up issues that I could very clearly see were at hand. And then once some of these issues were addressed and cleared, the baby descended. But without that, there's no question whatsoever that would have been a C-section, a cesarean. So that second point I was making was to really, really recognize the power of consciousness and how much inherent power every human being has, whether they're awake or asleep. That also applies to sleeping too, by the way. In a coma or not in a coma, brain dead or not brain dead. While you're in your embodiment, your soul's consciousness is fully functioning and fully capable and can engage on all levels of creation all the time, regardless of what your 5 primary senses are saying or doing. All right? Hope that's been helpful. And then with that, people can make the choices they feel to make. All righty. Great topic, by the way. Thank you, to this individual for bringing that up. This is a subject that weighs heavily on so many people, as it did on me for most of my life until I discovered some higher truths about it. So I hope they've helped you to the degree they've helped me. Our next topic tonight. I work in sales, and over the years I have developed a persona that I feel helps me sell. However, many years of being inauthentic has left me feeling bitter and jaded. I want to be more authentic at work, but I feel that if I make this change, I won't make enough money. So, you've confessed that your sales persona is inauthentic. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, that you weren't trying to be slippery there, because it is. However, the second sentence you're saying, I feel that if I make this change and become more authentic, I won't make enough money. I simply, kindly, and quietly suggest that you have it backwards, that you have it completely backwards. You may think that you won't make as much by being true to who you are, but the reverse is actually true. A, you'll make more, considering all other factors are in the same continuum. And B, the false persona, the phony persona that you think sells more, might be making you a good amount of money, but it's not making you as much as authenticity would make. Because if you're inauthentic, that is, again, all pervasive, and people can only perceive that. There are so many ways that affects another human being. Their impression of you would be less. Their trust in you would be less. Their faith in you would be less. Their belief in you. Even if it's not conscious, or even if it's not ostensible to you, it would be less. When there is authenticity, there's integrity, there's harmony, and that emanates and radiates a divine grace, a power. There are so many qualities you could call it. It's endearing, it's sensual, it's alive, it's passionate, it's truthful, it's engaging, enrolling, because authenticity is integrous. It's your divine presence and your human presence are in harmony, and the full truth of who you are emanates. How can that not engage and light people up? Now, what might help clear things up for you a little bit is by me adding this other piece. You can still develop a way of being. You call it a sales persona. You can develop a way of being to sell a product that's might be different than how you walk on the street, and in many cases it would be, because sales requires a certain presentation that might be different than how you are in your living room, or in the locker room, or with your friends at the beach, or at the ballpark. There's nothing wrong with that, provided it's still authentic. It can be different, but authentic. Does that make sense? I hope. I hope you see the difference. When people are in sales, they usually, and there are exceptions, but many people in sales do better if they're a little more outgoing, a little more, couch the word aggressive. They have get up and go, they have some gumption, they have some passion, some, clarity and crispness to them. But that can still be authentic. And that might be a little more than you would have on when you come off stage, so to speak. You might turn down the lights a little bit, turn down the volume. Maybe you're a little bit more quiet and you just turn on that little bit of that edge. But it can still be authentic. You don't have to be slick and false and create a false bravado, a false persona. That's not making you more money. You only think it is. Maybe because you make a decent living. But I can guarantee you, I bet my house on it, you'd make more if it was authentic, albeit still perhaps a sales persona. Be true to yourself. You magnetize way, way more people, and way more harmony and way more blessings in your life. Trust. Try it out. Try it out and see for yourself. Now, and our next one here. In the Bible, Jesus is quoted as saying, "It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God." I have always understood this teaching to mean that being rich was not spiritual and was somehow worse or bad. I've always struggled with this idea, and recently I heard you, Louix, say that wealth is not evil and that money is neither good nor bad. I have said that. Money is an inert substance. It has no qualities or properties of its own, and it takes on the energies we apply to it. It's an inert substance. Could you please explain this, and could you comment on why the Bible would say that it's hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God? A few verses later in that same passage, the Bible goes on to say that everyone who has left their houses, or brothers or sisters, or father or mother, or children or farms, for my name's sake, will receive many times as much and will inherit eternal life. I understand this to mean that sacrificing everything for God is important to one's spiritual life. Surely God does not want everyone to become monks or hermits and give up all their possessions. Can you please help me decipher these passages and understand this? Absolutely. I already explained the part about money and its qualities. That there is a misnomer, or misunderstanding, I should say, that many people have misinterpreted this and other sayings like it in spiritual teachings, that poor is holy, rich is dirty, and unholy. Not true. What is being misunderstood here is a teaching that actually has nothing to do with money per se. This teaching has to do with attachment. This is in similar fashion. It's a great misunderstanding that's happened in the Buddhist religion, where Buddhist teachings are misunderstood by many, including many Buddhists, that this whole thing about poor is holy and owning nothing is holy or holier than having a lot, because of what people witnessed and misinterpreted in Buddha's own rite of passage, that he was a prince and gave up all his wealth and had his begging bowl and became a monk, a wandering monk. So that gets interpreted as holy because he attained enlightenment. And so people misinterpret that and think you have to be poor and own nothing. Not at all. The lesson, Buddha's teaching and this teaching here, is about attachment. God does not ask that we give up everything we have. What we need to give up are our desires and our attachments, because desire is the cause of all suffering, not money. There are just as many financially destitute people who are just as unhappy as people with a lot of money, and there are plenty of people with a lot of money who are just as happy as people with no money. And there are even more cases of people who are unhappy in both genres. So desire is the cause of all suffering. So it's giving up desire, and desires breed and birth attachments. We develop attachments because of our desires, which then in turn cause suffering. Why this teaching of Jesus was spoken, what it means, that it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And again, we have to qualify that. That's biblical poetry that people also misunderstand. Heaven is a place in the clouds where you're going after you die, where the old white-haired man will meet you and give you your stamp and your grade and all of that. Enter the kingdom of heaven, he's speaking about merging with God, experiencing divine bliss, living in eternal peace, finding eternal peace and happiness within, and being fulfilled as one with the Creator. It's not going to a place after you die. It has nothing to do with dying. It happened to do finding God within and finding that inner peace and bliss that comes from being one with Creator and creation and self, the Trinity. So, becoming one with all of creation. Why it's harder for a rich man is because as people feed those attachments, those desires, and collect more and more and more, their attachments grow to them, and it becomes more and more and more difficult. Again, for most people, it is true, not for all. For most people, the more that they obtain and the more desires they feed and foster and perpetuate and pack on material acquirements to feed and sustain them, the more difficult it is to let go of the attachment as well as the objects. But it's not about the objects, it's about the attachments. It's interesting that people forget that Krishna was a king, and Buddha was a prince. And there are plenty of people, Yogananda's successor, Janakananda, was an oil mogul from Texas. It's not about money. He was detached. Didn't matter. How may I serve you, Lord? You send me into this world. Some people come in with a dharma, with a life's purpose to amass enormous amounts of money. But it's nothing that we do or come here to do is about us. Your body does not belong to you. Your life does not belong to you. Our lives and bodies are loaned to us as bodies as temples and the lives as instruments to be emissaries of light, to serve and fulfill the divine plan, God's will for creation. And where the problem starts is when we begin to lose sight of that original plan and we begin to take ownership, false ownership of what was never ours in the first place, to claim or to own or to be attached to. And therein begins the separation and the advent of all pain and suffering. And so the reverse of that is to surrender the desires, let go of the attachments, and surrender whatever materiality you have or don't have to the divine to be used. It's not about being rich or poor or getting rid of everything so that now you're poor and you're holy. Not at all. It's about dharma. When you're in attunement and alignment with the divine, your true dharma, your life's purpose, reveals itself and takes hold of you. It's like many people are the tail wagging the dog, but the dog wags the tail. We are the hands. We are the handmaidens and stewards of the divine. And God, the creator, is the brain. The hand doesn't tell the brain what to do. The brain tells the hand. So, when you surrender everything to the divine in consciousness, in concept, and in your heart, and when you develop the abilities to become attuned and to be in oneness in harmony with divine will, that you are now functioning as one with it, then what happens is your dharma, your life's purpose, becomes a natural expression of everything you say and do. And in so doing, whatever comes is perfect. Now, again, I was talking about hypothetical dharmas. There are some people who come into this world with all kinds of visions and dreams and inventions and creations, and many of them never have a cent and never will earn more than a few dollars more than they need to pay to sustain themselves. And that's okay. But again, if they're in that false teaching and false concept that they're missing something because they're not rich, or they failed because they're not rich, because that's what our parents taught us and that's what our peers and competitors taught us, they'll never find attunement either. And then you have the people who came into this world with their dharma, their God-given life's purpose, to amass enormous amounts of money, not to just lavish them with material gratification, though they're welcome to enjoy it. But if you're in deference to the divine, there's that word again. It doesn't mean that God won't say don't enjoy it, but there's a larger plan. It's not about us. Some people came in to amass these huge fortunes to fund the visions that these other people bring, like Reese's peanut butter cup. It takes 2 great tastes and 1 candy bar. So it's about synergy. We're an interdependent species. We're not a dependent or a codependent or an independent species. The human race is an interdependent species. Our journey to God is solitary, but as an interdependent animal species, we need each other in order to fulfill it. The ultimate journey is solitary, in your heart, with the heart of God. And people lose sight of that. They make it all about me, this self-indulgent, self-fulfilling. It's all up to me. It's all about me. But, there's this duality that has to exist, this symbiosis that needs to exist in the consciousness. I'm here to develop and foster and fulfill my relationship with the divine as one, become one with the Creator, one with unconditional love in the world, and to develop a way of being in harmony with all of creation, people, plants, animals, so that we're living and breathing and functioning as one collective family under the auspices of divine love, of the Creator. And when that happens, it's no longer about famous or not famous, rich or poor, owning objects or having no objects. Not at all. Not at all. So that's what this means. Hope that brought clarity to the biblical passage and to the concept of materiality versus quote-unquote poverty or lack thereof, lack of materiality, and in terms of spirituality. What is spiritual, what is holy, is not what is of money or not of money. What is holy is what is pure. What is holy is what is of love. The higher the vibration of unconditional love you can become and imbue into everything that you think, feel, say, and do, the 4 levels of your creation, that is the journey into becoming more and more holy, regardless of whether you're famous or not famous, rich or poor. I don't even like saying poor because that implies that if you don't have money, you're poor. That in itself is a misnomer. Or it implies that if you have a lot of money, you're rich. I've met some very quote-unquote wealthy people who are some of the poorest people I've ever met because their heart is poor. They don't have self-love. They don't have inner peace. They don't have harmony. They live completely out of alignment with the divine and with nature. I wouldn't call them rich because they have millions in the bank. I'd call them the poorest of the poor. The richest of the rich are the ones whose hearts are pure and their thoughts, feelings, words, and actions are pure, regardless of what career they have or how much money is in or not in the bank. There you have it, beloveds. All righty. I think I'm just about done here. I have a hard time quieting my mind. What do you suggest? I'll tell you at the next conference. All right. Okay. Tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel. All right. Me and my TV quotes. Bear with me, folks. Okay. We've got a minute or two left here, so I'm going to leave with some toning here and chanting. Come as we go as we come. All right, beloveds, thank you so much. I'm going to speak now, and then you'll carry out with the sound vibration. Thank you so much for joining me, having me back and into your homes and your lives. Please share this with others if you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you and being with you soon. All right, beloveds, namaste. Oh